Good afternoon. My name is Grażyna Rębielak, and I would like to welcome you all today. And unfortunately, I have to apologize because due to unforeseen circumstances, we are a little bit late. We are live now. We have Dr. Griffiths with us. Good afternoon once again. Apologies for this slight delay. On behalf of our university, I would like to welcome you all in this inspirational lecture tonight. My name is Grażyna Rębielak, and I represent Warsaw University of Technology Business School. I would like to welcome you very warmly tonight to this inspirational lecture. And I want to welcome students and alumni of our university, Warsaw University of Technology and our Business School, and also guests and partners of our partner institutions. The University of Salford in Manchester, and we have speakers from this institution tonight. Polimi, Graduate School of Management, Politecnico di Milano. Goa Institute of Management in India. Baltic Management Institute in Vilnius and Brussels. HEC in Paris. The Management School in Innsbruck. And Zicklin School of Business, Baruch College, New York City University. Right, tonight the topic of the lecture is the Rochdale SME Leaders Developing a Productivity Mindset Mentoring Scheme. And the speakers are Dr. Marie Griffiths and Dr. Maria Kutar, who are representing Salford Business School in Manchester. Dr. Marie Griffiths is currently the EDI Inclusivity Lead at Salford Business School, and she's also a program leader on 2 postgraduate programs at Salford Business School. Her main research interests are digital transformation, digital workplaces, and understanding the consequences of emerging technologies on society and business. And Dr. Maria Kutar, who is co-designing or co-working together with Dr. Griffiths on this project that they will be presenting tonight, is Director of Undergraduate Business and co-leader of the Disruptive Technologies Research Cluster at Salford Business School. Her area of expertise is digital technologies and information systems, with particular focus on the human aspects of technology. Okay, soon we will get the invitation to the next inspirational lecture, but now I want to wish you a very good time. And after this lecture, you will be invited to ask questions on the chat. We can start the lecture.
Okay, thank you, Grażyna. So apologies, we had a little we had a little mistake on our timings, so apologies there. To the point where my colleague Maria Kutar might be able to join us, but if not, she'll be able to join a little later. So apologies about that. Okay. Okay, so here we are. I'm just there. So apologies about this. Okay, so today our talk is about the project we are doing in collaboration with the Productivity Institute and with the the Greater Manchester Chamber of Commerce. And our work really is about the product. This is about the productivity the productivity paradox or the productivity puzzle, and we'll go into that a little bit more further on. So I'll start from here. So we're conducting a project. It's to do with we are developing a productivity mindset through a mentoring scheme, and I'll just talk you through our background and our background of who are in the team and who are in the team. And let me just check now. Yeah, here we go. So the talk will be over. So the team and who the funders are, and we'll talk through the productivity puzzle and what that's all about. Then we'll go into where we are the scene setting for where the study is taking place, and we're also going to be focusing on the rationale for choosing that these two areas that we're actually looking at. And then, of course, we'll go through our underpinning theory and some literature we're finding. Okay, so obviously my name's Maria Griffiths, and I'm based in the University of Salford, and that's based in Greater Manchester. I think we've got a bit of an international audience here. So we're based in the northwest of the UK, we're situated next door to other universities you might also know, which is the University of Manchester. We're right up close to the Manchester Met. So we're in that sort of northwest near Liverpool area. And we've done this project with the Greater Manchester Chamber of Commerce, who we've got quite a very close partnership. We're actually undertaking a knowledge transfer partnership with them at the moment, which is the KTP. So again, that might be a UK-based initiative. But the Greater Manchester Chamber, the Chamber of Commerce is an international brand anyways. So we're working closely with those. And we've also, the funding is also, here we go. So apologies. So also part of our team, because we are talking about productivity. So we've got our Dr. Tony Syme, who's a colleague. He's one of our economic lecturers. So we've got also Dr. Maria Kutar, who Grashna kindly, did her bio for that. And we've also we have we know Subra because it's so Dr. Subra Krishna Hari is also part of the team, and he is the Chamber of Commerce's is the director of research there. So we've got sort of a rounded team there. Okay. The project is actually funded by the Productivity Institute. Again, just coincidentally, that sits under the University of Manchester's sort of umbrella. And the Productivity Institute is a fairly large organised institution that basically focuses on, the issue of productivity, especially based in the UK. They had a large pot of money provided by the Innovate UK, and they have and they've got multiple smaller projects that sit underneath that, all focusing on productivity within SMEs in the UK. They're focusing really on, and the projects are all sitting under this umbrella of the so the 5 areas of productivity within the Institute is to raise productivity across business. And they're looking at these different areas, and I'll indicate where our project sits. And their aim is to understand productivity with the hope of increasing productivity, business productivity. So they look at the marketing communication aspect of the area of productivity. They look at the finance for investment and the strategic cost of management. They all look at the under the R&D and technical change and the digital transformation and knowledge diffusion. And they are also part of that is the worker skills and training, engagement and well-being, and the agility and adaptability, and also inclusive leadership and management. And all of these 5 areas, we're in our project, productivity doesn't sit solely in one of these areas, it sits across the areas, which is what our research is telling us. It really we're looking at leadership and management. We're looking at skills, and we're looking at digital transformation, and we're looking at that sort of almost that sort of pinch point of how the funding of technology within an organisation and how that should or isn't actually sort of improving productivity. So for clarity, I was talking to Maria and said there's these two phrases that we're often, as we're doing the project, we're saying, are we doing productivity paradox or are we doing the productivity puzzle? Sorry, I had a bit of a Wi-Fi problem. Okay, so the productivity paradox. This was an area of that's been highlighted across the literature and across industry since the 1980s, of 1987, and the Robert Solow. And the comment he's got there is computers are everywhere, except in the productivity statistics. And this statement really reflected the way of thinking about this point in this time. And he called that the productivity paradox. And basically, there's a notion that if you put if you fund or place computing or technology within an organization, productivity would just almost be an instantaneous sort of happening. And the reality is it's a paradox because it really didn't. And that there's no productivity statistics actually supported that, and it was called this paradox. Moving further down the line, as technology did come into organizations in a more of a sort of strategic manner, productivity still very difficult to sort of link that productivity with the technology. Also, back into the continuing the 2028 in our last recession. Unfortunately, we seem to be in a recession. The UK is tumbling into another recession, but that's probably another lecture for us. The productivity during this time for the productivity puzzle, because it is still a puzzle, because the productivity falls when there's a downturn, as in the 2008, that's an accepted sort of phenomenon that happens, obviously, because if you're in a recession, all things go downstairs. But what's happened in the UK compared to our European cousins is that productivity basically has flatlined since 2010. It never did that sort of jump up after as should happen after we come out of a recession. I mean, it's not done that. And this point in time, since 2020, in the last 15 years, it will probably be. That's unprecedented since the post-war era. And yes, it's a puzzle and it's still happening. So these are the two sorts of productivity paradox and puzzle, and they're actually sometimes they're used interchangeably, but that's actually the sort of like the concepts behind them, should you say. Okay, and we're really looking at this productivity puzzle because we're looking at technology within how technology is still not technology when you're investing in technology and financing technology, how that's still not having an impact within organizations after the 2010. Okay, so we've got here the UK's productivity puzzle. It's a declining growth, and I've got the outline or the map of the UK there. Because it really is a UK sort of phenomenon, really, this. So the UK productivity puzzle is the declining growth in productivity. Continually, the puzzle remains unsolved over many decades and is still continuing to be it's still this puzzle still happening. And we can't even sort of see, what the problem is, how to resolve it, and see if there's ever anything in sight that sort of indicates that the puzzle will sort of be solved in the foreseeable future. And as I said, the UK have officially gone into a recession now, so that's not going to be done over the next few years. Okay, so again, some sort of other sort of points to note about the productivity puzzle. A little more of an explanation. It's the decline in productivity growth. It's a challenge of explaining the slowdown in productivity. So yeah, we have this challenge of explaining why there's a slowdown, and we also observed so even in advanced economies, despite all the technology advancement and the increasement investment and innovation, we still got this flatlining, as we said before. The factors contributing to the puzzle, the difficulty. So we have a difficulty in measuring productivity, and I think that goes across the board. Productivity is notoriously difficult to measure. There's a hesitation of adopting new technologies, but in my background of digital transformation, this again is problematic, not just because of the productivity puzzle, but it's problematic across the board. It's a lack of leadership skills, a lack of knowledge, and a lack of sort of talent and things like that and skills mismatches. Also, that sort of risk taken of what sort of technology you're using, because we do a lot of work within SMEs, and this project is sat within an SME environment. Also, there's an implication of policy. There's significant implications for economic growth, wages, and living standards, and all this adds up to this sort of very fuzzy problem that we've got going on. Okay. Some literature, but there's a lot of literature around this. The literature really sits within, I suppose, organizational literature, economic literature, management, business and management literature. And also it has sat in some time in the information systems literature, which is mine and Maria's home for sure. So I'll just go through it quickly. So this is productivity and IT investment. So it's a long-term, widely held perception that the relationship between productivity and IT investment is a crucial factor for, everyone's, that's a sort of gone for sort of, this is the productivity paradox. So everyone sort of held the perception that IT investment and productivity basically go hand in hand, and they're crucial for economic development. And I've put these older sort of pieces of literature in place there. The Schreiber, Morrison. So that's all. That's, if you look at the literature and productivity, that's whatever. That's an agreed thingy. But however, as we're moving into the productivity puzzle, in the past 10, 14, 15 years, the research indicates that this situation becomes more nuanced. It's just not. You can't just rely on an investment in and a financial investment in technologies. It's a more wider sort of cultural thing with an organisation. It has to be. It's an organisational context. You need management. You need innovation there. You need leadership, and all of these can impact on the different types of investment you make. And it's just not sort of sat quite. It's not sat in a sort of a clean with a boundary around it. You need the right people, the right talent, the right skills. Also, you need the right innovation approaches as we're moving more into that area. Also, the research across the piece highlights the need for policy interventions in tackling this productivity challenge. It's so crucial for the economic growth for economic growth across the board. So we need to sort of, as a whole, invest in targeting training programs, improving, and even down to improving resident mobility to actually put the right people in the right places near the right organisations. The area we're looking at in Rochdale and in Oldham, that's an area. When I go into speak a little bit more about the context of the area, it's very difficult to sort of, for those organisations to attract the talent within that area. It's very close to major cities, but they sit outside the major cities. So that sort of area in the literature where it's sort of improving the residential, it's a sort of residential mobility. And the relocation of labour is very important to have the right people in the right location, and that might take an SME is not going to be able to resolve that. That's a wider sort of piece of work, and also the training programs and getting the right skills at the right time. Also, there's more so if you look more inside the organisation, there is a big need for enhancing the managerial the quality of leadership in the managerial teams within the organisation, and really addressing within the firm productivity issues and any sort of under a qualification of the board and the leadership teams if you haven't got an official board in place. Okay. Different also productivity insights across the literature is, I picked these out. As I said, the literature is vast, and we've just picked out slices of just to support this talk today. So there's a shift to low productivity. So the productivity literature is the UK seeing a shift towards relatively low productivity sectors. So in the big sort of scheme of things, we've got the technologies in there, but the UK compared to, and if you do look at our European cousins, they've still got, they're strong traditional sectors, whereas the UK, and this will have an impact on our productivity puzzle, the UK are seeing a shift towards relatively sort of low productivity sectors. There's a move to sort of services, to move to a focus on public sector, and there's a focus on healthcare, there's a focus on education, and we're moving away from the manufacturing sector and and all those sort of all those traditional sectors that you can measure and that will improve productivity on the UK overall. Also, we're looking at there's an impact of subsectors and industries. So there's a slowdown in specific subsectors actually within the manufacturing. There is areas of manufacturing, obviously, within the UK, but there's a slowdown in the subsectors of that manufacturing. When you actually break down all what the manufacturing sort of sector looks like, there is a slowdown in subsectors within the manufacturing. And I've put a few examples there, like in the transport sector, the equipment for the transport, pharmaceuticals, computer and software, and telecommunications sector. There's a slowdown in some of those subsections. There's also regional disparities. There's factors such as low levels of innovation, knowledge, diffusion. There's inadequate. This is a big report from the HM government in 22. And the workplace relations contribute to a decline in productivity in certain regions within the UK. And one of the regions where we are focused on in here is one of these areas that have been highlighted in this government report of it's an area of low productivity. We've also got job polarizations and skills mismatch. Excuse me. So the technology change has led to technologies across the board has led to job polarization, and we're moving now to this sort of focus for those people who are highly skilled with probably a university sort of background to highly skilled workforce, and moving away from the non-routine and low skill occupations. So there's that sort of job mismatch, and again, so people haven't got that talent in place to capitalise on their technology investment to help to increase productivity. And also, round and about, obviously, this has led to a wage inequality, and that's an author from 2011. But we found recent authors that also sort of support that sort of area that influences would hopefully influence productivity. These are influences of productivity and also some barriers on productivity. And again, we go back to this management and leadership, or the quality of, and this is really important to have the right to have the correct. You have to basically have the right scaffolding within an organisation with the right business practices, the right organisational infrastructure, maybe the right governance on board to be able to manage an investment and innovation, and also manage your talent. And that's a very recent paper. And all of these pillars of literature all come together and provide, they're all sort of areas where we're having an impact on and that impacting towards or basically creating what the productivity puzzle in the UK. And I'll go on to my next slide. Okay, so we've read all the literature. We've started on our project, our productivity project, and we've sort of come across two sorts of research questions that are underpinning our study. So we started with, what are the organisational factors that contribute to technology investment decisions and that improve productivity in organisations? And we're sort of looking at that because we've influenced that it's the wider organisational factors. So what are those factors that in the organisation that you can draw upon that might contribute to the decisions you make about what technology you make? Okay, you want productivity, you want to improve your productivity in your organisation. So what are those sorts of overriding factors within your organisation that contribute towards making those decisions? And also our second sort of sub-question on that is, how can this knowledge and expertise be captured and then be shared with other SMEs? Because I'll go further on, because we are looking at, so we wanted to find out what's happening inside an organisation, and then we wanted to say, okay, so how can all of that sort of good practice, all these, best practices and proved activities that they prove that they're improving productivity actually be shared across the piece with other SMEs that are similar to their own SMEs within their sectors. And there are overriding research. These are our overriding research questions for our study. So our project overview is, we wanted to investigate the barriers that businesses face in low productivity locations and the management decision making. We also wanted to investigate what were these decision-making processes that management or leadership or the senior teams make that actually decide and govern the adoption of the technologies that hopefully can improve productivity. Our focus was on SMEs, and the project was that we were developing a mentoring scheme to support SMEs within technology decision-making. So what the project is focused upon in looking at SMEs within a certain area, identifying SMEs that might be productive, will be financially sort of sound, with those organisations that would be less productive, and finding this is a small project, but finding up to a small sort of pairing of organisations that would be productive, or they got the aspirations and evidence of that productivity is occurring within their organisations, and then we'd match them up with organisations that would be possibly have challenges in that how they manage productivity, how they see productivity. So the two could come together and share the best practice across those two organisations. Also, I said before, this is a funded project from with the Salford University, Chamber of Commerce and the Productivity Institute. And that's our mini project overview, and there'll be further details as we go on. Now, the title of this talk was about Rochdale, and we've also included Oldham in there as well, because first of all, we decided on Rochdale, and we were struggling, as you know, we were struggling to get identify the correct sample group to support the project, that our research questions. Okay, so we've decided on Rochdale and Oldham, and I've put another map of the UK in there for you to identify where, just so you can locate where Rochdale and Oldham are across the piece, because they're probably not very sort of the big areas within the Greater Manchester, but you might not know them. They might not be familiar to you if you are in an international setting. So both Rochdale and Oldham, they're both boroughs of Greater Manchester, and you can see this sort of little mini arrow there. They're both identified as having low productivity and are actually identified priority areas for the regional improvement. Greater Manchester, on average, across the national average, has a productivity deficit to the national average. So we've not got a great productivity across the Europe, and in the Greater Manchester, excuse me, we've got a low productivity across the national average, and Rochdale and Oldham have a natural lower productivity across the piece there. So this gives you sort of identifies the rationale for the selection of Rochdale and Oldham. Rochdale and Oldham have got other low productivity, other parts of Greater Manchester. And Rochdale is one of the most deprived wards in England and is ranked the 15th most deprived in England. So you're getting a little bit of a background there of what the reasons why Rochdale and Oldham are probably ideal for our for this study. I've just noticed my colleague Maria Kutar has arrived. Okay, so hi Marie. Hi Maria. I'll just carry on. Okay. Okay. So digging a little bit deeper into the local picture of Rochdale. We've got it's a managerial. So both Rochdale and Oldham have got quite sort of heavy manufacturing sectors. The manufacturing sector is the largest contributor towards the Rochdale economy. So we're trying to build up a picture here of what the Rochdale is looking like. So it's heavy. It's a heavy manufacturing area. It's an area of deprivation within across ranked as quite heavy, low in the deprivation order. It's got 700. Well, you've got there just under 8,000 businesses make up Rochdale's business sector. 99.5 of them are SME. So in Rochdale, that's an indication in Rochdale that there is no sort of huge, big anchor sort of organisations that will contribute towards that, or no public sort of organisations based there. There's nearly 8,000 employees within 2022. That's the last sort of data we can get hold of. This accounts for approximately 6% of jobs in the whole of Greater Manchester, so it's not a huge contributor to the GM. And retail and hospitality sector is a larger employer of 30%. So the overall picture, it's got a big manufacturing sector, but retail and hospitality sector are the largest employer within that sort of area. It's a similar picture for Oldham. The manufacturing sector, again, is a larger contributor to the Oldham, so it's slightly bigger because it's an 18% contributor towards the GVA. Again, there's slightly more businesses in Oldham. It is a bigger piece, and they've got an equal amount of SMEs. So again, it's made up of lots of small SMEs and no big anchor organisations there, or public organisations there. It's got 85,000 employees again, so that's it's slightly different, and it's a very similar profile to Rochdale, but it's just slightly bigger. So you can understand why we've chosen these two areas to look at the productivity and see whether if there's anything our project could possibly do to help contribute towards improving productivity, or trying to understand the productivity puzzle to resolve that within those areas. Maria, you just tell me when you want to step in, or I can carry on if you want.
Yeah, I'm quite happy to jump in here. We can have a chat about methodology if that's all right. So I think kind of Marie has obviously outlined the kind of the overall goal of the project in terms of how we're aiming to share that knowledge really among SME organisations around the decision making. So our starting point in terms of the project itself has been, first of all, to try to understand what the firm level productivity is for all of the candidate organisations that we were drawing our sample from across both Rochdale and Oldham. So we've used from that as a kind of proxy the data from profit and loss accounts and balance sheet. It's definitely been a challenge as the kind of start of the project of actually being able to kind of dig in and get those estimates of firm level productivity. And as we'll see from some of the initial findings that we've got so far, it's something that the firms themselves also don't have necessarily a really clear handle on. We used that initial data and looked at the organisations specific to the two localities, to Rochdale and to Oldham, and we looked specifically at organisations that had between 10 and 250 employees, so excluding the micro businesses that were less than 10 employees. And from that, we had a potential sample population of, I think it was 76 active SMEs across Rochdale to be able to target to be involved in this initial preliminary study. We've designed both entry and exit surveys for our participant organisations. So the purpose with the entry survey is to get some core information about the businesses themselves. So to understand, as well as some of the kind of the business demographic information, also to start to get a little understanding of how the governance structures work in terms of what decision making looks like within that organisation, and some questions around their understanding of productivity and how it's measured within their own organisations. The exit survey will look to identify key information about their experiences on the project overall. Drilling down, we've managed to recruit 13 currently active businesses. That has been, I freely admit, a challenging process to get organisations on board. We've been very fortunate in this project to be working in partnership with Greater Manchester Chamber of Commerce. They have, excellent relationships with their member organisations, which has really supported us with that. But for busy business people, finding the time to devote to being involved in a study like this, we understand is actually very challenging. And so we're delighted, actually, we've pretty much met what was our original target of organisations for this initial pilot study, to be able to understand a little bit more about the process and how we might refine it. So we've currently got 5 peer-to-peer groups of 2 businesses, and with the best will, everything doesn't always go to plan, so we've ended up with an odd number of businesses on board in the end. And so our final group is a 3-group peer-to-peer mentoring, who'll be able to share their experience across that final team. Each of those peer groups is asked to work through a series of guided meetings, which are recorded for later analysis. Either if they meet online, we're able to obviously record that automatically for transcription. If they're meeting face to face, which has been kind of a real preference for our organisations, a member of the project team attends to be able to take notes and to keep a record of what's been said. When we get to the end of the project, we'll have a whole group event for the participants to be able to come together to share their findings and to feedback on that experience. So I think, thank you, Marie. Those meetings are guided to talk about 5 key topics, which we know from the work of the Productivity Institute are things that influence productivity. So the style of the meetings is intended to be very much about a collaboration between the organisations that are involved. So they have the opportunity to share insights, to transfer knowledge between each other and agree how they can embed good practices, and also offer insights in terms of some of the challenges that each of those organisations are facing. We know from the literature that mentoring is really beneficial, particularly in SMEs, because of the ability to share that practice. So our mentor and a mentee pairs are working together to discuss these 5 topics. There's a little bit of flexibility according to how the pairs are preferring to operate as to whether they or meet on 5 occasions to cover these across separate meetings, or a pattern that we've found seems to be working really well for the businesses is that they have 1 meeting on each of their premises and they come to the Chamber of Commerce for the final meeting and cover the topics across the 3 meetings. Just to run through those 5 topics, the first of them is around understanding how the businesses are engaged in strategic planning and decision making for productivity. So specifically to drill down and to understand actually what are the processes that are in there, who are the people who are involved, how are they conceptualizing and measuring productivity in their organisation. The second topic that we're asking them to look at is to identify what they think are the key barriers and blockages to make or to implement the decisions to improve productivity in their organisations. And moving on from that, how are they trying to address those? And this is clearly something where those mentoring pairs have real opportunity to be able to share their expertise and their experience of those challenges. The third topic is to drill down into how business leaders are making decisions around investment activity on the 5 key productivity drivers. And that's kind of leaning us back to this kind of issue around the productivity puzzle of trying to understand what the relationship is between those business investment decisions that they're making and the impact on what they're seeing in terms of returns on those investment and the productivity drivers. Topic 4 moves on to examine how productivity is included in strategic planning in these organisations. So specifically to understand, is it a formalised part of their governance processes, kind of what the measurement metrics that they're using, and how it is then planned in strategically for the business. Finally, we're interested to look across the businesses at whether and to what extent the different functional leaders are addressing productivity in their strategic planning across the business. So we know from the types of organisation that the governance structures and the functional leadership operate in quite different kind of spaces, so the organisation might be quite different. But we're really interested to understand what is the contribution of the different functional leaders in being able to address productivity in the planning for those organisations. So I think if we just moving on to the next slide, as I'm sure Marie has already outlined, we are running away with the slides. We'll go back a couple, if that's okay. We've got some preliminary data available so far. So from the entry survey and from our initial observations of the peer mentoring meetings that have taken place so far, we've not yet been in a position to complete an analysis of those across all of the pairs because that's still ongoing. But a couple of kind of interesting findings that have emerged in the work that we've done so far. The first of those is to look at how productivity is measured in those participant organisations. Interestingly, 40% of firms aren't actively measuring productivity. So that's a kind of an immediate kind of starter for 10. So, not doing it is a kind of a quick response to kind of what's happening inside there. And it gives us something to think about in terms of how that can be addressed to make enhancements for these organisations. But for the ones that are involved in measuring productivity, it's quite different in terms of the ways in which they're looking at it within their organisation. So from simplistic levels where it's being looked at in terms of turnover and profit per employee, which actually aligns quite closely with the initial metrics that we'd been looking at, to something that's a bit more complex at looking at the different areas, such as the use of specific assets in the organisation and the maintenance factors that feed in to all of those. So those give us a bit more of an understanding of the kind of levers that organisations are looking at. And in particular, what we'll be keen to explore with them further is how does that then influence the decisions that they're making around technology investment and their expectations about the impact that that will have on their productivity. So that's a very kind of tiny start in terms of the data that we've got so far. In terms of our next steps, we need to conclude the data collection from the participant the mentoring pairs, and we'll be hosting in next month the end of project event at the Chamber of Commerce for all of our participants. And importantly, although this is a piece of academic research, we're really keen, and it's a key part of the partnership with the Chamber, that actually the dissemination and the sharing of the knowledge of that is done through white papers shared with business leaders and organisations, so that the learning from the project can then be generating impact. We are looking to secure further funding to run the project now that we've got this initial learning at a much bigger scale across the region, with the intention that in the longer term we would like to run it nationally or internationally. And so certainly one of the things that we're looking out for are whether there might be opportunities for comparison project with international partners. We know that, the productivity picture is different in different places around the world, but some of those challenges around how organisations address improvements in productivity, it would be interesting to see kind of the consistency or otherwise of how that's approached. And then finally some dissemination through UK conferences initially, both through the information systems side and the management as well. So I think that brings us via references to the opportunity to open up for questions. Thank you. And an apology as well for over time.
So we do have one question from Anna. So thank you, Anna. And the question is, do you think that new technologies are important for productivity as well? Do you want to, we can both.
I think absolutely, it's important that organisations are looking at the opportunities from new technologies. Undoubtedly, if we look at the ways in which they're changing different elements of business, whether that's on a kind of physical manufacturing process, or in particular, I've just come out of a workshop today looking at AI. The ability to do things in different ways, to do things much more quickly, to actually use information in different ways is absolutely enormous. So that I think the opportunities for technology to influence productivity are vast. But what we know, and I guess to some degree that was the starting point for this project, is that it's not a given that technology investment will lead to improved productivity. What we're really interested in doing is understanding what are the factors in an organisation that can help them to make decisions in a way that they will start to see the expected returns. I don't know, Marie, if there's anything that you'd like to add on.
I think you're right. I think with the so Franna was asking about, do you think new technologies if we were doing this conversation 5 years ago, the technologies would probably be new. That we seem to be sort of in this sort of spiral of not being able to get out of this, this sort of like the puzzle, really, which is it. So, and maybe AI can come along, and that will help. There might be these new technologies that might come along, as Maria said, that might offer the different sorts of capacities, and we might have those skills, and we might be able to manage those better. But I think it's the wider story rather than just the technology, really. I think is what we're sort of seeing.
It is, and I guess bringing it back round to the project as well. It's really, I think, kind of key for what we're looking at here is that the mentoring provides a way to give businesses the opportunity to share with others both their knowledge, but also to learn from their peer organisations. One thing that's clear is, with technology, there is so much change out there. Things are happening very quickly. And, for us as academics, keeping up with the pace of change can be challenging, but businesses, especially who don't necessarily always have that technology expertise, I think can find it really challenging to understand what's out there. How does it fit for their businesses? So anything that we can do to try to break down some of those challenges and to help them to understand how they can apply that in their own context, I think is really beneficial.
Any more questions from our participants? Thanks, Anna. Any more? So, we've got a few more minutes until 5 o'clock. So, I don't know. Oh yeah, we've got. Okay, so I'll read this out just in case if it's getting recorded. So we've got, so thank you, I think Maziji, I think probably not how you pronounce the name, but do owners have resources to measure productivity if they have many other things to monitor and care about business development, income taxes and the other issues? So I think that overall, so do owners have resources to measure the productivity if they've got lots of other things going on to monitor and to care about? So I think again, I think it's also, have they got the resources, but have they got the actual knowledge of what to measure that indicates what productivity means for them? So Maria will probably jump in a second, but if we think about if you think about like the tiny snapshot that we've done, we spoke to 13 organisations, and 40% of those. 40% of those haven't actually don't measure productivity, and there's indicators in the comments like we don't measure productivity, but we do look at this and we do look at that. So they might not have the resources or the actual knowledge. I mean, what do you think, Maria?
Sorry, I was just about to kind of say very similar thing. I mean, I think it's clear not all organisations have the resources to do that. That's certainly kind of one of our emerging data findings, and I don't think that's entirely unexpected. Historically, it's been much more common for productivity to be considered as being something that happens at regional or national or a sectoral level, rather than something that is really concentrated on at firm level. And so I think that finding that, not all organisations are thinking about it in terms of kind of the explicit context of productivity. But then if we look back at some of the things that organisations saying they're doing that are their measures of productivity, if you then took that to another business and said, actually, are you thinking about this element of, the operations of your business and the way it's working? The answer might be yes. It's just that they're not necessarily aligning it as a specific productivity question. And of course, all of those other things that you mentioned in the question around kind of business development, how they're managing their income, etc., all feed into productivity. But business development in particular is, one of the things that organisations are going to be thinking about in that space is, where are we going in the future, both in the kind of in the short, the medium, the long term? what are our strategic decisions, what investments are we going to make to do that, and the outcome from that is expected to improve rather than to reduce their productivity, I think.
Yeah. And also, across the board as well, even though you should be looking at productivity and should be looking at all these different aspects, we're seeing it definitely in the UK that we've got lots of different pressures on businesses because I think you're sort of almost saying they've got so much going on, can they focus on productivity as well? And there's so much, lots of organisations have got lots in the UK at the moment there's lots of further challenges on them as well.
I'm just looking back in the kind of the response, that you agree, but many SMEs do not have knowledge about it. And I definitely agree with that. We've worked with lots of businesses over a number of years, specifically looking at digital transformation. And there is not necessarily that knowledge across all organisations, getting to the point of, even knowing what's out there and what you might do, let alone being able to understand exactly how you apply it in your own context is really challenging. And I think it's especially common in that SME space for these to be things that exist very much outside the day-to-day pressures. But again, I suppose I will wrap that round and say, one of our priorities with this has been to try to understand what are potential levers that might help to improve that for SMEs.
Well, yeah, again, thank you for the question. Any more questions from our participants? Don't know if we've got no, yes, no. I think we might fold it from there then, because it has hit 5 o'clock. So can we just probably be me, apologise, because Maria was joining later anyways, apologies for our error in the time differences, because we for some reason we thought it was you guys were an hour ahead rather than an hour behind, I think. And maybe
many apologies for that.
Yeah, apologies. And apologies to Grashna, because Grashna probably was thinking, oh God, where are they? But okay, so it all ended well. And so I hope you've been sort of found some interesting aspects of the project. If you want any questions, please contact us. Oh yeah, okay. The next meeting when you have the research. Yeah, yes.
We'd love to come back actually, when we've got kind of a full set of data to be able to talk about. And I think very much this is a first pilot project. We've learned so much. I think that probably hasn't come out yet in the presentation. We've learned so much about kind of the process and refining what that mentoring scheme needs to look like, which we want to feed into the next one. But it'd be great once we've pulled together, particularly kind of the findings in terms of the analysis about each of those topic areas, to be able to come back and share it.
Yeah, and be on time this time.
Yeah, indeed. We'll definitely know what time it is next time.
Thank you very much, guys. And thank you, Grashna, for and the University of Warsaw for inviting us. We hope that it's been beneficial. Okay.
Absolutely. And if you do have any questions that haven't been answered here, or you'd like to kind of reach out and carry on the conversation, do feel free to. You can either drop us an email through Grashna or find us on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Okay. Bye, guys. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, and I think we'll just. I think it's. We'll just stop sharing now and leave. I think that was the guidance. Okay, so thank you, and we'll go. Yeah.